What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 3 of the Advanced Spigot Coding for 1.15 series. It is coded right here, and I'm going to be talking about MySQL in these next 2 episodes. So we're finally talking about databases. This first episode, we're talking about what a database is and how to create one and connect to it. The second episode, second part of this plugin, we'll be going over how to actually use a database, how to add stuff, take stuff, create tables, and all that other beautiful things. So, without further ado, what is a database? If you already know what a database is and you already have one, you can go ahead and skip ahead a few minutes, probably at minute 5, I'll go into the actual coding. But what an actual database is something where we can hold information, and most importantly, we use it for cross-server data info. So I have a database here. I'll go load it up for you guys. This is my database, and it holds my name, my UUID, and my points. And this is what I mean. My database holds these points. I have 8 points. Now, if I have a multi-server, my server has like a hub server, a survival, a skyblock server, I'm able to get this point on no matter what server I'm on. I just connect to that database and I pull those points. So what the actual plugin does is it's a mob counting plugin. Like I usually code these, it's pretty simple. We just kill a mob and we get a point. So I have 9 points, kill a mob, and we get a point, 10 points. Now, like I said, these points are cross-server. If I go ahead and leave the server and I go to a hub server or a skyblock server and I kill a mob, I will get a point and I'll go to my database. It's really useful and a really nice feature for your plugins. A lot of people use databases, so you should probably add a database to your plugins to make them, 10 times better. If you have things that are cross-server, you can add so many new features, and that's what we're gonna get into right now. So, my database looks like this, and how did I get this database? If, like I said, if you already know how to do a database, go ahead and skip ahead, because we're just gonna download this program here. Of course, I'll put the link in the description below, but once you have this XAMPP control panel, what's it called? It's XAMPP control panel, and that name looks familiar right there. But if you have this downloaded for Windows, Linux, or Mac, it will work. So go ahead and download this. I would probably download the latest version, which looks like this one, right? I'll probably download the latest version. And then once you go through the installation and install it all, you'll get to this right here. This is what the control panel looks like. It's pretty awesome and really useful. There's a bunch of different things we can enable. I don't really use any of these. I do use FileZilla sometimes when I go on my public server, but I have Apache and MySQL enabled. So to use MySQL, you will need Apache enabled. And to enable it, it's super easy. Like I did, you saw me end it. You just click start, and it will start up. You can see right here, typing the start, and boom, started up. To end it, stop, and you can start up in any order. You can start the Apache up first, and then MySQL. The most important thing is you just need both of these enabled. Once you have both of these enabled, you can actually go to your database by clicking admin. And no, not the admin in the Apache, admin in the MySQL. So once you click on admin, you'll go to this other website I already had open, which is just your local host. And I'm able to show you guys all this because it is a local hosted database. You guys can't sign into this, so this is my database like I showed you guys, and this link is the same thing. It's my database. When you're in your database, you will see a bunch of different things here. You'll see user accounts, and that's the thing I'm gonna go to now. I'm gonna click on user accounts here to show you guys how to sign into your database. Now we're gonna use this for code, and if you have an actual hosted database, you probably have a password and username, all that. Like I said, this is my local host, so all I'm gonna use is the username root, the hostname localhost, and no password. I'm not using a password. I use this database just to, test my plugins to make sure they work. If they work with a database, that means they'll work with any database. So in your user accounts, if you wanted to add in another user account, go to add user account and add in that account. If you go to databases, you'll see all the different databases that you have. Obviously I have one called Code Red Plugins, and then I have one called Test, and this is the one that my plugin is under, the player data, boom, name CMAX, UUID, and then my points. So what MySQL is, what I should say is what SQL is actually another programming language, quote unquote programming language. This is what the language looks like right at the top right here. Select star from player data. So select, select from all, and the table player data. Now I can go on and show you guys how to do stuff, how to add things inside of here, but I don't like to do that. I like to add and edit my databases, of course, with Java, with actual code. So we're going to go into that right now. So like I said, make sure you have this downloaded. You can go ahead and start it up if you like. I'm going to end it all right now so then I can go ahead and code for you guys. Here is my project. I named it mob points. I went ahead and created the package me.codered mob points, the main class, and then I created another package called me.codered.mob points SQL. This is where we'll hold all our SQL classes. And then I went ahead and made the plugin.yml. Nothing special here, just a normal main class and then a normal plugin.yml. Like I said, nothing special, it's all simple code. Let's go ahead and actually get our code done. Let's click on that package, go to new class, and I want to name this class MySQL. Now, like I said, we need a connection. We need that username, we need the password, we need the host. We need to know what database we're connecting to. Usually this information right here is in a config file, and of course you probably should put it in a config file, but for testing purposes, I'm going to just go ahead and make them all right here. So my host name is localhost. The private string port is usually always 3306. If you're dealing with MySQL, it's usually always 3306. Now I had a weird case where mine was 3308 one time. If you have an error connecting to 3306, go ahead and try 3308. Maybe that'll work for you guys. But keep going on. So private string database, and right here is where we'll set it to our database. What database will we be using? Now the database that I'm going to be using is not the test one. I'm actually going to use this one right here, the coded red plugins. And sorry, my server shut off, so you won't be able to see it. But if you want to create a new database, go to new and then create a new database. Don't put anything in there, of course, just create the name. So I'm gonna connect to this one, coded red plugins. So my database will be called coded red plugins. Next, I'll have a private string of a username. And like I said, my username is root. And my password is non-existent. Private string password equals nothing. That right there is our connection. Right there, we can connect to our database. To actually connect, we need a connection. So private connection. The import for this is really important. Make sure you're importing the java.sql.connection one. Go ahead and press finish. Once you have that connection imported, the first method I want to code is actually probably the most important one because we're going to be using this a lot. It's the public boolean is connected. So we're going to use this method in other methods that we have in this class. So is connected. We're going to return, and this will be a check. So we're going to check if the connection equals null, question mark. If the connection equals null, that means it's false. Otherwise, it's true. If y'all never seen this before, it's basically another way to do if statements or like a return. I forget the name for these, but so we're checking if connection equals null, question mark. If it is equal null, that means it's false. Otherwise, it's true. Like I said, that method is pretty important because we're using it in every other one, like our connect. So our connect method is actually going to throw a few things here. It's going to throws a class not found exception, comma, and it's also going to throw a SQL exception. All right, next import all those, and we're going to go into here and we're going to say connection equals DriverManager.getConnection. And in here you see it says URL. We're going to pass in our database URL basically, and then we're going to pass in the username and the password, and we're going to connect to it. This whole line right here I'll leave in the description below because you could mess up pretty easily. But it looks like this: jdbc colon MySQL colon / and then plus, and I'm going to move it down a line for you guys, and I'm going to say host plus colon plus port plus / plus database database. Oh god, I can't spell database plus, and then I'm gonna type this in right here and I'll explain in a second. Question mark useSSL equals false, and now we can finally put a comma, move down a line, comma, username, comma, password. And just like that, we connected to our database. So this right here obviously is a URL. We're connected to this MySQL database. We're passing in our host, which is localhost. We're passing in our port, which is always 3306. Like I said, sometimes it could be 3308. Or if you did change it, if you changed it, then it'll be whatever you change it to. And then / our database, which is coded red plugins. And then I'm passing in this question mark useSSL equals false. Now, I had some bad experience with this when I had a server, so I always set it to false. Now, I obviously think you should probably make this like a fig feature to where you say like should use SSL and then have a default set to false. But yeah, I don't really know how to explain this. A lot of plugins have this set to false. I had experiences where if it's true, then they get a lot of errors and it just makes things more painful. So like I said, you could probably make this like a fig option just in case. It might in the new versions be automatically set to false. Not too sure. But once we have set to false, we can pass in our username and our password, and we connected to our database. Of course, this will be surrounded in a try and catch whenever we actually try to connect, because we're passing in these exceptions here. Once we have a connection, we need a disconnect. Disconnect. And this one's pretty easy. Oh, actually, let's go back to our connect and let's copy what we wrote in here, delete it, and type in if exclamation point is connected, and then paste that back in. So if just double check, so we're not connecting to a database we're already connected to. So if we are already connected to it, we don't run it. But if we're not connected to it, then let's go ahead and connect to it. And then we'll do the same thing in our disconnect. If is connected. So if we are connected to our database, let's go ahead and disconnect from our database. We're gonna try to disconnect to our database though. So we're gonna try to disconnect connection close. And we're gonna catch an SQL exception E. And for our catch, we're actually gonna print our stack trace, because if we are connected and we tried to close that connection, if that develops an error, then something went wrong. Something's really messed up, and we probably want to see what went wrong. Okay, so we're all gonna print that. Finally, the last method we will add in here is our public connection get connection, and that of course will return our connection. And boom, we are done. That right there is our MySQL class. We have it is connected, a connect, a disconnect, and a get connection. Just like that, our MySQL class is completely done, and we can go into our main class and use it. So the way I use my MySQL class is I actually make it a public MySQL SQL, because I like to access this thing from all my classes from just passing an instance of the main class. And I'll show you guys that in the next episode. But go ahead and import that SQL, and the first thing we want to do is actually initialize this SQL. So this.sql equals the new instance of it, new MySQL, and boom. Once we have this class initialized, we can go ahead and use it. Really important. This line is really, really important. I'm gonna highlight it again and say, make sure you have this line. I can already predict some comments saying it's not working from people not putting this line in. All right, so make sure you have that line, and then we're gonna say SQL.connect. We're gonna get a red underline here, and that's because we need to hover over it and type this one right here. Surround with try/multi-catch. Click on that, and it'll predict this whole thing here. It'll code this whole thing for us. Now, I'm gonna remove this to do, and it's gonna automatically put this e.print_stack_trace. I do not recommend at all having this in here. I'm gonna comment it out. Do not have a print stack trace in here, because if we catch an error from trying to connect, it means two things. It either means the info, it either means the login info is incorrect, or it means they are not using a database. So we don't want to print an error in their console if they're not using a database. All we want to say is bucket.getLogger.info database not connected. That's all we want to say. We don't want to print an error in the console. We just want to say database is not connected. There, then they can be like, oh, it's not connected. Maybe I put my info in wrong, or they can be like, oh, okay, I'm not using one. Cool. Next, let's move down a few lines, and let's say if SQL.isConnected. So if it is connected, we can go ahead and say bucket.getLogger.info database is connected, exclamation point. And then later on in the next episode, we'll go into more code in here. But if it is connected, let's go ahead and say it is connected. And then the on disable, we want to say SQL.disable, disconnect, Boom. We are done. Awesome. I'm going to export this to my server. And then I'm going to load up my Apache, my MySQL, and then I'm going to load up my server, and we'll see how this works. All right, so with my Apache and MySQL enabled, if I go into my console and I look for, what is it again? Mob points. If I look for mob points, there we go. Enabling mob points version 1.0, and right under it, you can see database is connected. We connected to our database. Now, if I stop my MySQL and my Apache and I reload my server, you'll see enabling mob points, and it might take a few seconds to enable to connect to that database. If you're stuck here, let's go ahead and press a key on your keyboard and I'll load them back in. And let's look for that mob points, and you'll see enabling mob points. Database is not connected. It's not connected because I don't have my database enabled. So just like that, we connected to our database perfectly fine. If I look for it, database is connected. Awesome. Super easy stuff. Just connect to it. And next episode, we'll talk about how to actually use the info from it, how to add info, how to remove info, you know, all that beautiful stuff. And I'll actually go over a lot of different things because I don't like to type things into my database. Like I said, I don't like to go to that website and do things. I like to do it all with code. So we're going to learn how to create tables, create a player, check if a player exists, add points, get the points, empty the table, and remove value. That's all the different things we'll go over in the next episode. I really hope you guys did learn something and enjoy this episode. If you did, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next episode for when we go over how to actually use this database. Thank you guys.